Welcome to the Colors Delight for Life. It's about life, where we share our experience, strength, and hope to help others so they have a better understanding. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Andrea. The Andreas meet. I can tell you that it seems like in my life, God has been great with sending me healers,
Right.
and healing me in all types of form and method.
Right.
But there have been times when I have needed that insurance policy the most, when it did not. And sorry about my phone. That's my phone, and I didn't mean to do that, but we'll get that stopped, and I do apologize for that. So please forgive.
That's okay.
Please forgive everybody. But with that said, Andrea, I can tell you there have been a few times in my life when an insurance policy had been canceled or for whatever. It's been years, but right at the time when I needed it the most. And, you know, it seems like God has provided some sort of secondary backup for me. I've just been very, very blessed in the area.
Well, I knew where to go for an appointment in a different healthcare system, and I will have a visit hopefully very shortly. So
okay,
I will go in there with the attitude that, you know, this is what I deal with. This is what I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
And I just said, you know, I don't take things like, in fact, I think I'm going to file a complaint with the medical association, and excuse the expression, they may get sued for malpractice.
I know, I can understand that. I mean, sounds like you're in a very precarious place, and you need to be treated and need to be taken care of.
Exactly. And I'm very transparent with my emotions and people, because I find honesty is the best policy in what I do. And that's the only thing you're going to get out of Declares Delight for Life. And we'll begin the podcast, and I'll get off me. I'll tell you a brief history. If you followed any of my stuff, you know I've dealt with some difficulties.
I sure have. Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to overcome the odds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
it's amazing when you come from a place of challenges and struggles, and you come out the other side victorious, but doesn't make it easy. And it doesn't mean there isn't post-traumatic stress. I grew up I was an adopted child, and my parents couldn't have children biologically. They adopted me. They were wonderful, very ethnic people, but my father had an alcohol problem. He was alcoholic. So I do know what it's like to come through things and you go, I'm alive here at this age, really, because, and I always give it to the divine, I'm here because God wants me to be here. You know, there you see your childhood, which sounds atrocious in so many ways. And probably mine was kind of like sprinkled like with beautiful things, but then it was like Jekyll Hyde, 50-50. It would be like awful, terrible, you know, life and death challenges. And then everything would be fine, and my dad would not be drinking, and then things would be wonderful. So it was very confusing for the little child's brain. Like, okay, are we okay now? Or that kind of thing. It's very, very difficult. And you come out the other side stronger, but you definitely have, if you're like me, Andrea, and it sounds like we may be similar this way, and we're both Andreas, you do feel there's a scar. There's emotional, physical, spiritual scars that are left, and they need to be healed. I know I struggle with PTSD, and
it makes two of us.
No, I'm not glad that I'm not the only one, because I don't want it for anybody, but I also, at least we're not alone. Well, I had wonderful, loving parents. No doubt that they didn't love me, but with that said, we were very working class. We didn't need for anything, but we didn't have anything extra. You know, it was just the basics were taken care of. But my father just had an extreme alcohol problem through to about the age of 17 for me. And he started to develop heart issues, and that caused him to slow down, which was one of the better things that happened. And I was dating my husband, who's now 42 years old. We met as kids, and you know, so much of it was like just the person that definitely you could say, use the word soulmate, and we liked and loved each other. We still do after all these years. But it would be like Randy, who's my husband. He would say, well, Andrea, your dad's wonderful, but this is awful. How did you survive this? And Andrea, I can only say that maybe the love helped that my parents had for me, and or I think I developed a connection with God. It wasn't, we were Catholic and I went to church, but this went far beyond all of that. This was very spiritual for me, a connection, not about church, but about the heart, the spirit. And I felt a sense of God from the time I was a very, very young girl. So I think that somehow that sense of being watched over kind of crept into everything. And, but I still look back on it and I think of children like you and I going through something like that. And it mortifies me to think that a child is going through that. It just mortifies me, spending time as a young girl in the back seat of a car when my dad was at a bar, but it's, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it's 10 degrees out, if that. And, I don't have, the proper coat or clothes or, somehow I got in that back seat. Somehow somebody put me there, and and I'm waiting in the car thinking just a little tight, going, oh my God, am I gonna freeze to death? I don't know what like a 5-year-old thinks about that, or a 4-year-old, but I was very young, probably 4. And those kinds of things, just very, very scary, very frightening. But here we are, right? Here we are. We came through it. We made it through, but out the other side. But there's certainly a lot of it. But any questions you have, but just to kind of clarify, my father started to go through to heart condition, and he had to have 2 bypass surgeries, open heart surgeries. So for me, for that, I saw my dad again, that really good side of my dad that was always there, very generous, would give you the shirt off of his back. We helped children that were more needy than us, and we were needy, but he was very, very good that way, even as an alcoholic. But as he came out of that and really stopped drinking due to his physical condition, it did get better. But I was growing up at that point. So a lot of damage had been done, that I think I've been working on my whole life, Andrea, really have been. I don't know if you experienced that, but I feel like the times I've had a doctor of a long time here in Nashville of 25 plus years, and she's wonderful, but she's had her issues too, of personal. And whenever there's been a few times after all these years that she has said something to me that seems off, I've had to say, like, above all else, do no harm. So we're communicators, Andrea. I can tell that. And I would rather my doctor or healthcare provider, healer, whoever, whether they're naturopath or holistic, or I would rather them say, I'm just not in a good place right now, but they don't tend to do that as professionals. They don't tend to want to admit their weakness or their place of they're having just even a bad day. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, I have. It was interesting, as I found one doctor that I did like, but then this one doctor totally shuts me out of the entire clinic and can't shift me to a different doctor. It just, something seems off about like that for healthcare, and to abandon a patient. Mm-hmm. Basically, I call it a patient abandonment.
It really is. It's almost better that you don't have anybody than to be abandoned. It's almost better. Does it make sense?
Oh yeah. My dietitian for my diabetes, I don't have no diabetes follow-up.
Oh, honey, it's got to be I'm so sorry, Andrea. I'm so sorry. Are you on your insulins and medicines, or are you okay?
I'm on medications, and some of them are going to be up for renewal.
Oh my. So is your mom making some headway into getting leads for you?
I don't know. She was talking to the clinic I was hopefully getting into quickly. Okay. Sometimes God makes a way to get into a clinic. It's
Yes.
the same clinic I thought about switching to, and maybe I should have switched.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to have a problem with being gay. I don't see people complaining. Also,
Oh,
is it
so
one
far.
thing, me and you probably agree with this, and it's a deep dive for you. Have you ran into people in your life that seem to complain a lot?
Oh, yes. 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 In what respect?
Complaining about their health, they're complaining about their relationships, their finances, or just complaining about everyday things. You probably have either had people like that and had to let them go.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Our audience, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about the issue of as being a strong person. It sounds like you are, both me and you are.
We are. Yeah.
Maybe you could explain to our audience how complaining doesn't help. Taking action is where it's at.
It's absolutely necessary that we take proactive steps. Andrea, and I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me that I I've learned and learning ing continue to learn to be prayerful about it. I had 7 sinus surgeries and 2 vocal surgeries in my mid 20s. Was a big reconstruct, and I always tell people I never got the nose job, but that's okay. My doctor. But I went through a vocal surgery and a sinus surgery. It's very unsuccessful. It's a very prominent ENT in Pittsburgh. And to just try to stay on your point and your question, I realized he's just busy. It was that feeling of he's just busy. He's hardly paying attention to me. And I'm going back to losing my voice, and I'm a singer and a songwriter as well, communicator. And I thought, oh, this is not good. But I have learned this. My first proactive step, if I'm being smart and I'm listening to past behaviors that have been really successful in my life, I'll get on my knees, whatever that means to all of us, and seek spiritually. I'll stop myself from just running because I'm gonna call. I'm like you. We're honest and open, and I'm gonna reach out for help. So I've found that if I just stop, center myself, and say a prayer, and wait for something, even if I'm not hearing back anything in my spirit, if I can wait for something, it's like I feel like I get direction that way, and that's been the most successful way that that I take action. And it sounds like you're taking action on your knees, but it's really an active thing. So I would tell everybody who's listening, first thing you do is seek that higher power, whoever that higher power is to you. For me, it's Jesus, but whoever that higher power, that's an action step. And you have to do it. No one will. You can have people pray for you, but if you're not seeking yourself, you're not going to find it. It's got to be you when the rubber meets the road.
Back to your journey a little bit. What challenges did you have, like as a teenager into your 20s? I know you touched on it. Is there anything else that's gone on during that period and then mid 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s? And describe things you've overcome, challenges, things that were game changers in your life. So go ahead.
I developed here in Nashville as a young working songwriter, and wanting to be in that field, wanting to songwrite, book write, communicate. That's my heart and my soul. And I found that, first of all, it was so much tougher than I ever thought it would be. I knew it was going to be tough to compete, but you realize when you're actively pursuing your art that you are up against so many, and there's only, especially in the day when I came here, there's only so many spaces, and there's a lot of talented people. The good news is there's a lot of talent. The bad news is there's not, especially for the record labels in those days. Now we have a whole computer, we have a whole world to get our music heard. But back then,
TikTok, just to let you know, TikTok is where it's at to get your music heard.
I've heard that. And I thank you for that. But I will tell you, I think between my father passing away, moving here on a writing deal, my father passing away, and I had a very good friend whose mother was killed by her stepfather, like a series of tragedies. that happened. What I found, I was walking David Lipscomb University track. I would walk it, lived close by there every day, just for the mental release as well as the physical activity. And I developed panic attacks. And I was like,
I deal with panic attacks too and
oh,
anxiety.
it's awful. And I had
Yeah.
depression, Andrea. I really had, but I had never experienced. I was walking the track. My little car was across the road, at the other side of the track, and I just knelt down and not like scrunched down. Everything got dizzy and surreal, and my heart said, "I'll never get from here to my car. It's an impossibility." Like everything became super exaggerated. And I felt stuck. And there was a fella jogging, and he stopped and he said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know." Because I had never I had anxiety. Everybody has experienced anxiety, but this was like, I can't make it from point A to point B. There's no way I can get there. Like I was frozen. And I was just frozen in time. And with that said, I eventually made it. It felt like I climbed Mount Everest to get to my car across, just how it felt. I got back to our house, which was only 10 minutes away. It seemed like 3 hours. And then after that, I think it was just a series of tragedies on top of a lot of childhood and still unhealed issues. And I ended up not wanting to leave my house. I ended up becoming agoraphobic. I did not want to leave my house. I just said, it's too scary out there. And I guess to me, it was just an amazing amount of fear. I try to tell Christians, I was also brought up with, when I gave my life to Jesus, with a lot of wonderful people around me, but they were so afraid of the enemy, the devil, if you will. And it made me scared, like, okay, all this stuff is happening, but I mean, is he in control? I mean, I really lost sight of my grounding and what I believed in. And I just, too much trauma from childhood, coupled with extreme traumas happening in my life at the current time. And I didn't leave the house. I was very blessed to have a lovely friend from Belmont Church, my home church at the time, call a wonderful lady who was an MA, a psychologist. And we just talked on the phone until I finally got out the door. I finally, slowly but surely, got out the door. And so I'm going to tell you, I will tell everybody who's listening, and I feel so much, I love people so much. It's not easy, but you said it, Andrea, before, you have to take action steps. There's a point where you have to face your fear. You feel that?
Yeah, definitely.
Back into my 20s with the first throat and sinus surgery that was unsuccessful, and the doctor that was kind of like, "Well, you'll be okay," and I knew I wasn't. I again took an action step of prayer, and I waited, and then I got these little signals about somebody named Dr. Edward Weisberg. And I remember just going there, and he immediately checked me, and with the probes in the nose and the way the sinus doctors do. And he said, "Oh, dear girl, my goodness, you are a mess in there." And I knew it. I mean, he said, "I can't imagine how you're even making it." And I was really becoming immune to antibiotics, because they would switch me off, one antibiotic, and I had no immunity. I was sick all the time. I had gone down to, I'm about 5'7", but I'd gone down to I think I was like 103 pounds, Andrea. I mean, just skinny. There was nothing to me because I didn't feel like eating. And, you just really feel like you were at death's door. You're like, okay, I said, "God, if there's a you," I remember in my book, I said, "God generic." I said, "I believe in Jesus, but if there's a you, you're going to have to intervene and show me." And I met Dr. Weisberg not long after that. And it was a 2-year healing journey. And it was not just my throat because of my voice, but just like another 6 sinus surgeries, and finally a follow-up vocal surgery. So that was a couple of years down. But I will tell anybody, God is amazing. Don't stop seeking, and speak up for yourself, because I think the thing that I have seen in my family, because I've always been the ambulance driver and the person that helps people get to the doctors, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to help you get there. And I'm going to ask the questions. I took care of my elderly mom for 11 years here in Nashville before she passed. And I ask the questions. And if you ask them kindly, but sternly, if they're not giving you the kindness back, you know, they'll respect you, but you can't shrink back. We have a tendency, I think, especially back when you and I were growing up, Andrea, given our ages, that you don't question the doctor. Oh no, you have to, and you have to keep looking.
Yeah, I've traveled a road of suicide attempts, many different things, and that's not where I'm at today. And it sounds like you've traveled quite a journey too.
Yeah. No suicide attempts, nothing of that for me, but that the closest that I ever came wasn't a suicide attempt, far from it, but it was a feeling of, well, if it doesn't get any better, I'd rather not keep going like this. That was, but that's as far as the thought ever went. You know, if it doesn't get better, I don't want to go any further. But it feels like there was always hope that came for me afterwards. But you've been through, I think, in some ways, I mean, all of our trauma is important. I would tell all of our listeners that. Don't ever think your trauma is more than mine or their trauma. You know, just value yourself to know that everybody's trauma, everybody's woundings are every bit as important. You know, it's not one's worse than the other. It's you've got to be your own advocate.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And such. Talk about your book and your business, if you would, and what you've done to, you know, start your business, how you overcome getting your business started, and, you know, some of the trials and tribulations of your business, and go ahead and share that with our audience.
Okay, my book, I wrote it. Let's see.
Go ahead and pop it up, because this goes out to YouTube too.
Here we go. It is called Out of the Ordinary, Experiencing the Divine. And it won a 5-star Reader's Award for inspirational nonfiction. And I wanted to write something that wasn't a memoir, but I wanted to write something that was little vignettes, little stories about how I saw God work in my life that was just magical and mysterious and beautiful and wonderful. And the book is very easy read. It's a very, very easy read. It's a quick read, an easy read. I'm working on a new one right now. And I think for anybody who wants, you know, you can go to AndreaLRobinson.com. I would be glad to send anybody who's listening a free copy. They just need to provide their information.
I'd love a free copy if you'd like.
I will. You need just give me your information, Andrea, and I will send one to your way. Okay. My heart's pleasure.
Let's see. After the recording, I'll put it in the chat. So for your information.
Thank you. I would absolutely love to share that with anybody who's listening. I say I have a million seller. I have a million in my cellar, but no, I'm teasing. I sold quite a few, and it's done very well for it being the first book out of the chute. I am on social media. I have a YouTube channel. I'm
on all the platforms, on every single platform. Yeah. You can't escape me.
That's good. I'm glad.
This podcast, I'm also a blogger. I also write as an author for a magazine called Isabella, which is Isabella. It's been there since 2007. So
I think I have read that magazine.
Yes, it's online. It's online.
Oh, how neat. I feel like I've read that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm there for 12 articles. You know, I do have some good things happening in my life, and I try to look to that side of the fence. And I think I was going back to your business. What else do you do in your business?
Well, I also am an abundant life coach. I'm a Christian who is crazy, wacky, out of the box person. A crazy sense of humor. Yeah, me too, girl. And I absolutely I'm a master level Reiki practitioner. I don't know if you've ever heard of Reiki healing touch. You too? Seriously, Andrea. We have this. Wow, Andrea, this is getting so cool. It's freaky cool, but that's awesome. So
We'll have to stay in contact like friends.
oh, absolutely. This is too cool. We can't even make this stuff up. You know, we can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. And I want to say that I do a lot of spiritual consults with people where I will do distance Reiki. Have you practiced distance Reiki? Okay, so I have clients, you know, from really all over the country, primarily, not anywhere internationally, but all over the country. And so they can schedule an appointment with me on my website, AndreaRobinson.com. And I tend to do the distance Reiki about 24 hours before their appointment, because then I can give readings on, I'm reading the energy. So I can give readings on, you know, physical. We're not doctors, as you know that. We're alternative, and they're not patients, they're clients, as you know that. This is so cool. You're right in the realm, girl. And I love it because I have some spiritual gifts. I don't like the word psychic, but they're very they go into reading the energy, where I can say, you know, I can offer them something that from their childhood that might come up, and I'll say,
I'm going to say it right to the point. You have wonderful gut instincts.
Exactly.
And you got to trust those gut instincts. And that's what I've learned to in running this business. And sounds like in your business too, about, you know, having to use our gut as a guide. And I look at my gut as my guide, is what God gives me. You know, I don't read fancy business books, and, you know, I don't see the point. I have two wonderful workers who, one of them contacted you through LinkedIn. She's very great, and she's a wonderful lady. And I have some wonderful ladies too. So
thank her. I have two wonderful girls. I have a social media assistant, and
same here.
And we're just very blessed, aren't we? I really, again, I sound like I overuse this, but I know God brought us together. And then I have a younger girl who is very tech savvy, and she's helping me with Instagram things. So, you know, right? You too.
We've got a dream team, is what you might call it.
It is. It's so cool, Andrea. It's so cool. And, you know, I started this writing a few years back. I wrote, but I didn't know that I was going to get into social media. But then I learned this is a part of this. This is a part.
Definitely.
And I just was unaware of that. I was felt really led to write a book, and that my whole life I knew I would, but this was the right time was now. Or back when I started a few years back. But I didn't know that I'd be involved in social media. That was like mind blowing to me. But it opened up a whole world of content. I wasn't even on Facebook, Andrea. I wasn't in it at all.
That sounds wonderful that you've branched out on social media. That's probably helped your business. You've got a great team. I follow somebody called Gary V. He says the same thing, get on social media. And just to kind of let you in, and even our audience, there's a new thing coming up called blockchain and NFTs that I'm learning. And I'm going to become a blockchain master and understanding that I can create my own cryptocurrency. I've gotten very familiar with this, and I'm going through a training course for it. So that's going to be Web 3.0, and there's going to be different things associated with it. You could even turn your book into an NFT and sell it, and you get 10% of the profits every time a token gets sold off. I'm very familiar with it, and if you want, at our coaching call, I'll let the cat out of the bag. For any of you guys out there listening to this podcast, if you want to be on the podcast, you get my free books from me, free audio books. You get all my 3 books and my 2 audio books, and you get a free coaching call from me on business or personal stuff that I help with decluttering, and I ask you to put your questions together. So that's a big speak out to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's same for you, and it's my gift to you.
Oh, thank you. I would love a coaching call. I'd love to hear more about this. I didn't even catch what the terminology was at first.
This is all for you guys out there in podcast land. So, if you want to share your experience, strength at home on Declares to Light for Life, here it is. So, if there were 3 takeaways you could give to the audience, what would they be?
Put God first, whoever your higher power is to you. I won't push that on anybody else, and go by and if I can add that in number 1, go by your experience. Your church and your sociology and your community is great, but go by your experience. And if you haven't had an experience, ask for one, because that's why I wrote the book. The tagline is experiencing the divine, because how do we really know something is real or true or happening? It's because we've experienced it. So I would say that my takeaway is absolutely never give up on yourself, ever give up on yourself. Because I used to think, growing up in the alcoholic home, that I was just not as good as everybody else. I was just flawed. I was just not as valued, even by God. The wound was deep. But I want to tell you, no matter how that feels real to you, just know that we are all a part. We're an echo of his voice. We really are. We're all God's stuff. We're all made in his image. So remember that. Remember how valuable you are when you reach out. And then never stop looking for what's good and right, your purpose. You're here for a purpose. You're here on purpose. Don't lose sight of that. Even in those dark times, just keep saying, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. It's a good purpose and it's a God purpose. And I think those would be the 3 takeaways that I would say.
Okay. I appreciate you being on Declares to Light for Life. It's about life.
Thank you, my fellow P in the pod. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. 100%.
I hope you enjoyed the experience.
I've had a wonderful time, and I've learned so much just from listening to your story. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So you have a great day, and I'll see you.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for coming to Declares to Light for Life. It's about life. I hope you enjoyed our podcast as much as I did, and I hope you have a great day. I'd love to let you know about a new book coming out, and it's a great help for those who, and including you, to deal with life. It's called Overcoming Depression, Anxiety, PTSD, and Stress. Who couldn't use a book like this? And it's a great program. And the book and audio are going to be made available on Audible and Amazon. We also have we are on all the social platforms, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, and TikTok, and just about anything else you can think of. With all that being said, we also have some other wonderful books that you can get on Amazon and Audible and on our website too, which is declaresdelightforlife.com. Again, that's declaresdelightforlife.com. And those books are Clutter to Declutter. And another one is 28 Days to Declutter Your Mind. The other one is Secrets to Declutter Your Mind Now. These were written with lots of love and experience, these books, to really help you on your journey in life, because I know, having gone through so much in my life, these are written from the heart to see that you too can succeed despite your situations. And I just want you guys to know that we do have a 180-day guarantee that if any of these don't work for you, you can just email us or at support@declaresdelightforlife.com, and we will refund your money with no questions asked, because we believe that a no questions asked guarantee is the best way to have a great relationship with you. And with that said, you know what? I hope you enjoyed this episode of Declares to Light for Life. It's about life, sharing your experience, strength, and hope.